So let's talk about June.
Oh, I didn't mean now. I didn't mean now. I didn't mean now. I thought we'd finished. I thought we'd finished.
Pammy, go on. Let's have 10 minutes about June. You look so nice today. So nice to see you. Really, it is.
Well, the weather's lovely.
It looks lovely, actually. I mean, and it's nighttime. It's very light where you are.
It's beautiful because in 3 weeks we're heading for the longest day, which will be, well, it's coming up far too soon because you barely started, but you know, that's lifting everybody's spirits really, because it's been a very long winter and a very long, cold, wet spring in the UK.
Yeah. You're looking really good, Pam, and as always, it's lovely to chat with you. So I was wondering what you were thinking about this shift now as we move into June. We've got Mercury retro from today. What's your feeling about these aspects? Because there's a lot of retrograde coming this month, isn't there? And I'm wondering what your take is on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? You know, there's always a sense with retrograde planets of going back over what the planets have covered when they were direct. And, you know, as we know, Jupiter was absolutely rocketing through Aquarius. I mean, normally it spends a year in a sign. It only moved into Aquarius in mid-December. And it was out of Aquarius, just a couple of weeks ago. You know, it was a crazy, crazy time. And, you know, for me, and what I've been talking about is Aquarius represents the science, perhaps. And Jupiter always has huge enthusiasm for the sign it's moving through. So when it starts to go retrograde on the 20th of June and backtracks, to me, it is going back over the wisdom, Jupiter, of that racing through Aquarius. I think that's one of the aspects. And looking at Mercury, Mercury is going to be in Gemini, which it rules, as we know, the whole of June. And so there's going to be a lot of information, a lot of facts and detail. And at the solar eclipse on the 10th of June, as you know well, Bracha, Neptune is square to the Sun, Moon and Mercury. So there's a ton of information out, but what's true and what's not? You know, it's going to be foggy. So for me, you've got to kind of not listen so much to external sources, but drop into your heart and say, what's the truth for you? What's the truth for you? Because that Neptune is really teaching us to go into our intuition, into our hearts, if you like, and not just listen to what's coming at us, because there'll be a lot of information coming at us. And I think it's going to be very important information. I mean, Mercury retrograding is again uncovering information, isn't it? It's like pulling a cover back. It's going back over the facts, going back over the information. So Jupiter and Mercury in particular going retrograde, I think will be a very big reassessment and reevaluation period for what we've been through this year. And I think that could be very telling in terms of where we're headed in the bigger context of Pluto moving through Capricorn.
Yes, yes. And what's your take as well? Of course, Neptune going retrograde as well.
Yeah, and I think that's about deepening our sense of spiritual self. That's my feeling, deepening our sense of spiritual self, because if all the external sources are proving to be unreliable, what's left?
Exactly.
You know, it's training us in our mastery. It's training us to drop into our hearts, into our intuition and say, what's true for us? It doesn't matter what the mainstream news is saying, what's true for us. And I think this is a big, big part of our mastery. We're being turned back into ourselves, as it were. What do you think, Bracha?
Yes, I would agree with you entirely. I just think there's an interesting mix between the Gemini energy, this mutable energy that we've got with Gemini and Pisces, which are quite different, aren't they? The Gemini being the mental and the logic and the words, and Pisces not having words. You know, Pisces are like, sometimes haven't got the words, but I feel this. And I think that we're having to find a balance between good logic, good use of the mind, a higher frequency of the mental energy, And also raising the frequency of the heart energy and opening the heart. Yes. And I think those two are like, they're not exactly the best bedfellows, are they? Yeah. It's like.
No, they clash because it's, you know, it's kind of head and intuition, isn't it? It's kind of head and intuition. But what's interesting is so much mutable energy. Because as we know, that's very chameleon-like, it's flexible, it's adaptable, but it's not anchored. I mean, you've only got one planet in a fixed sign, which is Uranus, and Uranus is hardly reliable. I mean, it wants to smash everything up. So, you know, all of this mutability is almost like, to me, the anchors are off. And that can make it feel less stable for people. But on the other hand, if it's less stable, let's create what we want.
Beautiful. And we're free.
Not what we don't.
Exactly. And there's a freedom. And also when you think about Gemini and Pisces, these are dual signs. Yes. So not only are they in duality in a sense, but you've got the two fish and the twins. So which are you choosing? Yeah. It's almost like you're being given a choice here. And you do have choice. Right? Yes. For the most part, we do have choice. And I think it's important not to get into a mindset of saying, I don't have options.
Yeah, because if this amazing lady, Dr. Edith Eger,
beautiful,
could live through the horrors that she lived through and have choice in what her response and her reactions were to the hell that was happening, you know, we certainly have a choice. And I think those two dual signs, as you say, that to me, you know, I've got a clearer and clearer vision of the fork in the road. And we can choose which fork we take.
Exactly. And it's not external. Once you change the internal, the external magically shifts.
Absolutely, totally. And because the outer is just a mirror of the inner. But that's why I think we have to be incredibly conscious of our choices, because we're choosing which fork we're going on and they're diverging very quickly.
Yes, they are.
It's not like you say, oh, I'll go over here and try this one out, and in a couple of weeks I'll hop over there. That's becoming less and less possible. Once you've committed to one course of action via your decisions, it may not be possible to jump. You know, it's like jumping from one speeding train to another, because they're both gathering momentum now. So that's why, you know, I've certainly been saying in the videos, and I'm sure you have in yours, Bracha, you need to be wise and conscious of your choices, because you may not be able to jump to the other fork in the road. And I think that fork in the road is going to get clearer and clearer in society in the coming months, to force more of the awakening, let's say.
Yes, yes. And this is what it's for. It is an evolutionary jump that we've got to make. Yeah. And the mutable energy, I feel, is helping a little. Yes. It's helpful, potentially. As you say, it's got the destabilization to it. So it's like, well, you know, am I on the seesaw? And is somebody too light on the other end? Do I need somebody heavier? And how to balance that with the kinds of frequencies of the people that you're interacting with. But it is said that the 5 people that you interact with the most, you pick up their energies.
Absolutely. Yeah, right? I really, really agree with that.
We have to be very aware. The Neptune square, the square energy with this eclipse, it's really important. What am I telling myself? Am I telling myself with Mercury retrograde that I can't, and I'm not this enough, and I'm not that enough? Or am I ready just to trust what
just to be silent? You know, and I think the more and more we can go inwards and our center becomes our anchor rather than the externals being our anchor, you know, so the externals will never be reliable. They can change at any moment, and they're changing lickety split at the moment. So this is another part of the mastery. Go inwards, shut your eyes, watch your breath, drop into your heart, you know, just watch your breath and get into that rhythm, all the things, you know, that you and I both know. And that's your center, that's your stability, because it's going to be wild out there in the next 2 or 3 months. I think it's going to be absolutely wild.
And we've got the conjunction, the exact square of Saturn and Uranus on the 14th. So, you know, it's going to be wild. We've got Saturn the past, Uranus the future, Chiron in Aries, finding your identity, finding who you are, who you are as a person and who we are as humanity.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think Chiron in Aries is ultimately about becoming your own leader in your own life.
Yes.
Becoming your own leader.
Beautiful. And being self-sufficient, not being codependent, not relying on this and that and the other. Yeah,
absolutely. And this is the second square, isn't it? Second exact square. The third one's in Christmas Eve, 24th of December.
Exactly.
It'll be very interesting to see how this played out, because on the 17th of Feb, the first exact square, we were in lockdown largely across the world. Exactly. So, you know, we've been, certainly in the UK, we've been promised total freedom, you know, masks off, back to normal, total freedom. On this, what is it, the 21st of June, just a week after that second exact Saturn-Uranus square. So is that going to happen? Or is it going to be all of a sudden Saturn says, oh, for your own safety, Saturn, to be secure, Saturn, we're going to have to extend that limited Saturn freedom Uranus. And that's my feeling, that it won't be as free as they originally promised. There's going to be some reason. There's going to be a pulling back again. And that, of course, will accelerate the revolution, the revolutionary side of Uranus, because eventually people are just going to say, do you know what? I'm done.
We're cooked. Yeah, we're not having any more. And so where in your life individually have you had enough? Where are you saying yes to too many engagements? Yes to too much work? Where you, sorry, Pammy, touching nerves here just a little, but you know, where are you saying yes to too much? And where do you need to create a revolution in your life?
Yeah.
So that you can start something fresh and lead in a new way and help in a new way. You've got to heal your own wounds. Chiron in Aries is healing this, you know, your headspace effectively. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, you know, a sense of worthlessness very often when you're very young, that you can turn into leadership ultimately to help other people with that. But it's really, you know, what we've just been talking about a lot between us this evening of, you know, how do we help people in a different way, from a different
and not in this pushing and having and feeling overwhelmed by too much work, but doing things in a new way.
Yeah.
And Uranus is about, in Taurus, is about changing our habit patterns.
It is perfect.
These ingrained habits. I'm so used to doing my work in this way.
Yeah.
Well, we're having to get used to, many people don't go to offices anymore. We're having to get used to being more independent with our physical health and well-being.
Yeah.
We're having to get used to new habits. And so I would say, as this is coming up to anybody listening, what new habits do you want to begin to create, and which ones are not working for you anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. And that so fits with how a lot of people are feeling, myself included, I think, at that incredibly powerful total supermoon lunar eclipse, closest supermoon of the year. And, you know, it was an ending, lunar eclipse, an ending. And so many people, myself included, were saying, I am just finished with this particular XYZ. I am absolutely done, 7 ways to Sunday, with this particular pattern of living.
Yes.
Can't do this anymore.
Yes.
And I know many people in their different areas of life, depending on where that fell in your chart, were feeling that. So that's been a really powerful energetic pivot point. I think it's been an energetic pivot point actually for the world around truth. Truth, justice, freedom, massive freedom marches all over the world, over 1 million people in London today, you know, and also they were all saying, enough. We're not going to do this anymore. So I think there's been quite a global shift in energy and in consciousness.
Yes.
For the better.
Yes. And I think this is going to gather speed, gather momentum. Yes. As we move through this month. June feels a very pivotal month.
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think it's super important. And it gets kind of almost, well, it's hot all the way through with information, but I think it's very hot towards the end of the month as well. I think we're going to see some amazing revelations as we go through the next couple of months. And, you know, it's going to be the best movie in town.
Absolutely. Get ready for some really hot entertainment. Yeah, it's It really is going to be quite amazing and in many ways exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is an exciting time to be alive.
Yep. We're living in a new world.
Begin to reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Begin to get rid of the things that are weighing you down, that are heavy.
Yeah.
Don't have to have them anymore. And it's a change of mindset, which is this Mercury all this time in Gemini.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And also, you know, this Aquarian energy with Saturn in Aquarius and Jupiter kind of backing into it at the end of July. It's you know, it's coming together with others and collaborating to make your life easier, but to produce something that's a group, from a community, from a collaboration. There's going to be more and more of that, of how other people can help you with their skills and you can help them with your skills. And it's going to be, you know, that's going to be lovely. And that's the Aquarian energy at its best. Meeting with people of like minds, and there are lots of events which people are aware of where you can do that now, and they've sprung up in the last couple of months, last few months.
Yes.
There's some wonderful chances to meet with people of like mind, and that's been thrilling, frankly. People you'd never met in your life who are on the same page as you and have the same views, and that has been for me, an absolute delight, and I know for many others too. And that's growing exponentially. It's growing week by week.
Yes, that's really exciting. So for the people that don't have that yet, just know that it's coming. It's on its way, because the Aquarian energy, you know, because we're harking back a little bit to the 21st of December with that conjunction in the Aquarian push. And now we've got this Aquarian energy coming back again with Jupiter going back into Aquarius. You know, there's a sense that we revisit that. It's not the same degree, but it's still an energetic visitation, and also maybe a refining of the collaborations.
Yeah, I think that'll work very, very powerfully. And I think that will prompt probably geographic shifts as well. People, you know, choosing a different fork in the road. I think there's going to be a huge amount of change in society as a result of how they have processed the information and the conscious decisions or unconscious decisions they've made on that information. And that will determine which fork in the path they take, and that will determine really how society is formed going forward. So I think it's massive at this time, bigger than it's ever been in terms of the choices you've made.
Yes, yes. And of course, we've got the United States Pluto return coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, some corking solar arcs in that chart as well, some absolute crackers.
Solar arc midheaven, yes.
Yeah, so that's very interesting. Solar arc Pluto conjunct the midheaven of the US chart, 4th of July, 1776, Philadelphia, 5:10 in the afternoon. So if that chart, which I've always worked with, and many astrologers do, and I know you do too, if that chart is valid, that is a whacking fundamental change in the sort of leadership or government of the US in the next 3 to 4 months.
Totally.
So that'll be very interesting to see how it plays out. We'll definitely know if we've got the right chart then, I think.
Yes, but it's going to be so powerful because Pluto rules debt. It rules deficits. Yes, it rules you know, and look at the US going into now 3 trillion. What is Biden about to spend? So I think this is all this plutonic energy and going over the top potentially, with wanting to recreate something that actually needs to fall. What is it? Because, you know, Pluto actually just annihilates everything and then rebuilds. It doesn't actually allow you to mess around with a structure that's had it.
Yeah, the tree crashes in the wood, it dies and crashes, and then new earth is gradually formed from that rotted tree. But it's, you know, it's death and rebirth, isn't it? And it's, you know, it's so interesting. Pluto's also linked to taxes. Taxes may have to go up dramatically to fund, you know, everything that's happened in the pandemic. Pluto's in that 2nd house of the US chart, so that's the economy.
Exactly.
You know, for me, it's also the house of values. This is like a spiritual rebirth for the US. It's an economic rebirth, but it's a spiritual rebirth.
It's a spiritual one, a deeply spiritual one. What are the values for this land of the free? I think it's free, you know, the freedom and the revolution and the Constitution. what is the United States going to constitute? What does it want to be made of moving forward?
Totally. And I've been talking about that quite a lot in my videos, about that Statue of Liberty, you know, welcoming in the immigrants. You know, what's that whole phrase about, we'll welcome in your poor and, you know, your whatever, to the land of the free, to have your American dream. And where is that now? Is that still valid for people?
Yes.
Or not? Or what new values have to be formed, and what new economic system is going to come from those values?
Yes.
So it's
beautiful.
I think
it's great.
Whatever happens in the US, it's kind of the leading domino. Because whatever happens in the US or comes out from the US in terms of information, it's going to be a domino effect across the world.
Has to be. Has to be. And the fact that Pluto return is happening now, and everything is so plutonic, and we're moving to these last degrees of Capricorn. So this is all that really strong Saturnian energy.
Yeah, it's really, you know, digging up the dirt because it's, you know, it's about sewage, isn't it? And, you know, underground stuff, you know, digging deep, you know, any kind of murky, dirty laundry that you didn't want the world to see. Guaranteed, Pluto will bring it up. It's digging it up, digging up the dirt.
Got to come out. Yeah, it's all those deep toxins. When you release them, you feel fabulous, but you've got to get them out. You can't keep censoring people. You can't keep censoring information. You've got to let whatever needs to come out, come out. It's like emotions that you've kept deep inside of you that you've resisted letting out. When you let them out, they're paper tigers. But whilst you're holding them in, they are terribly destructive.
Yeah, very corrosive. Isn't it interesting, you know, about the censorship that transiting Pluto is opposing the US Mercury? US Mercury is the media. So, you know, isn't it, you know, the suppression of free speech, essentially. And I think that's going to change in lots of ways. Either that it's going to spawn a lot more social media channels. I think that's one possibility.
That's
even a possibility. Yeah, I think very strongly. And there's even a possibility that internally, some of these traditional social media platforms that we've worked with over the years, that internally some change may be forced.
Yes.
I don't want to say more than that, but you know, that's another possibility. But either way, you know, either way, you know, I think there's got to be a change, because it's so oppressive at the moment that you know, people just aren't tolerating that, really.
And there's false information, there's misinformation. I think we're probably going to see unexpected policy changes. Joltings of the markets. It's got all this sort of mutable madness that Ray Merriman talks about, in his stuff, you know. So I think that great projects are going to be attempted, but whether they're going to be doable, I'm not so sure. Whether we're going to be able to work with existing infrastructures and change them, or whether we've got to get rid of, which is very plutonic, and then build from the bottom. What's your take?
It's very interesting. I mean, my firm view of Pluto and Capricorn is it demolishes the entire thing. And it's grinding through those last kind of 5 degrees of Capricorn until finally 2024, when it finally leaves Capricorn, and it will have done its job on excavation by then. So we're in the final stages of, you know, digging up the dirt in Capricorn type structures of, you know, top-down corporations, institutions, governments, anything that has had power over our lives in terms of top-down. That is where any lack of integrity or transparency or accountability is going to bubble up very inconveniently. And have to be dealt with.
Truth. Yes. Beautiful, Pam. I think that really epitomizes it. Thank you ever so much. Is there anything else you want to say? I think we've really, you know, anything you want to...
No, I didn't expect all of that. That we're just having a chat, but anyway, you always catch me on the hop.
Well, I don't always catch you. We've had many chats, haven't we, Pammy? It's not really true. But no, I'm going to turn off the recording and we'll continue our little chat, but I'll just turn the recording off. But thank you, Pam. Really appreciate your insights. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Pleasure.
Really.
Thank you.